Greetings, my name is Rudimentary Rob. Welcome back to my Raft series. Today we resume the action of us in a life and death struggle against, well, what have we established so far? Sharks, our own hunger, our own thirst, our own lack of materials, but we are still here. So welcome back to the struggle as we move our efforts forward in Raft. Alright, if you remember in the previous episode, we had a few mishaps and we did lose rather a lot of some very useful materials and equipment. We are recovering from that fairly effectively at this stage. I wouldn't say that we're out of the woods yet, but I don't think we're at risk of immediately being, starved to death or whatever. I think we're back to being a little bit more stable. And given we've already got our paddle, we're actually going to go and raid one of these rafts before it floats past. So let's see how we get on with that one. While we're paddling away here, I'll just let you know there'll be a few sped up bits in this. I got a little carried away with this play session. That might be a minor spoiler in terms of how it went. So not wanting you to have to watch through too much of the mundane and random drifting that goes on, I have elected to speed up a few bits here and there. Interesting to see that the raft music actually sounds quite good, sped up and not sped up, so that's always good to find out. Now, the reason why I'm paddling back towards this raft is I'm used to them doing exactly what it's doing now, which is to sink when you interact with it. Except 9 times out of 10, I usually end up swimming over to them, and so the first interaction I have with them is to stand on their deck. This time, when I paddled up to it, I had easy reach of the chest. So I thought maybe there was a second chest on that one, but there wasn't. It's just the sinking doesn't start until you actually set foot on it. So yeah, don't worry about it. If you got everything out of the one chest that's on one of those rafts, you've got everything of any interest there, and you can just let it drift off. That is a rather large island that we seem to be sailing, or drifting, I should say, fairly definitely towards. I think I'm feeling okay about my sort of supply levels. So we're going to use this paddle that we made earlier to get over to that island, and we've already got a single-use anchor on the raft already. So we're just going to anchor ourselves to the edge of the island here. There's no actual reef where we're landing, which is actually a double bonus because it means the reef, or reefs actually for the big islands, is well away from the boat, and I'll be able to loot those without having to worry about the shark. Is there other things I need to worry about? You're just gonna have to wait and see. Now, anytime you make landfall on a bigger island, so one this big, or there are some bigger ones out there, you're going to want to make sure that you're pretty well clear in terms of your inventory. But also, you're going to want to potentially carry some spare food and some spare water, because exploring the island inevitably takes you a fair way away from the boat. And yeah, you don't want to get randomly attacked by your tapeworm a long way away from the boat, because it can take a really long time to get back to the boat just at walking speed. So yeah, just an FYI on that one. Well, there's a couple of things I probably should have done a little better before I set out onto the island. One is to have eaten a little bit more food. I mean, you do come across some fruit and things that you can eat on the island. But most of the fruit is good for your hydration, not for your food levels. So you're going to want to yeah, you're going to want to carry something a bit more substantial with you. So yeah, that was almost a wasted effort. The other issue we had was we didn't take a spare stone axe with us, particularly given the one we had was almost worn out. So yeah, maybe learn from my somewhat mediocre lesson there. Now, the other issue we have is we are good for some supplies. We are not so good for plastic and essentially rope making materials. So, this is not going to be a hugely long stay on this island. Palm leaves and wood are not going to be a problem because, hello, there's a gazillion trees on these islands. The problem is I'm inevitably going to run out of plastic because I have so little to start with. So that is essentially our time limit at this stage. Everything else we can reasonably make do with what's here on the island. Now, that big dark brown thing that we saw, yeah, minor spoiler, we are going to get a bit of a closer look at him a little bit later. It is a boar, and it is not a friendly boar. He will want to. Well, he's like the land-bound version of our little shark friend. The only difference is the boar doesn't go after the raft. Other than that, they're pretty much compadres when it comes to their desire to see us shuffle off this mortal coil. Yeah, most of what I want off this island is actually on the reef. I'm trying to get some more sand and some more clay so I can finally make my furnace, or my smelter, I should say. We really want that one finished because that is our big roadblock moving forward. We get a lot of very good tech comes out of being able to smelt the copper and the iron and all that other good stuff. Yeah, we are hungry and only able to walk. Running into that little piggy over there right now would be a very bad idea. All right, so we're at an island. You know, it's an idyllic kind of place. Yeah, there's sharks out in the water. Well, a shark that wants to, kill us. There's a wild boar that definitely wants to kill us. Surely that's all of the things that want to kill us in this game. Yeah, no. That big bird up there is not a seagull. We're going to have some more unfortunate sort of encounters with things the more of this island that we end up exploring. And the boar is not the only one. This bird is going to be a royal pain in our behind. You know, maybe not killing us, but certainly keeping us on our toes. Now, that shovel icon there, to dig that up, we need to make a shovel. To make a shovel, we need to have smelted metal. So we're already coming across some things that we are very much limited by because we don't have access to smelted metal at the moment. So we are definitely wanting to rectify that. Now, that little explosive thing that just happened, essentially what happens, the big bird, it will land on the ground, it will dig itself up a big rock, it will fly up into the sky, and then it will drop it on your head. And it is fairly accurate. You do not want to be complacent about how accurate that bird is with his rocks. Just don't stand in the same place for more than a few seconds and you should be okay. It won't kill you in one shot. It'll take a few hits to kill you if you're at full health, but it's not pleasant to be cracked on the head by a rock. So yeah, I tend to advocate for just avoid it where you can. We were pretty close to having enough materials to make the smelter at the end of the previous episode, but I'm not content to only just have enough. I want to have enough that I'm probably going to want 2 smelters before long, so we're here on this big island. I'm taking this as an opportunity to just gather as much as I can. Now, see that cloud of fish there? Yeah. Be a bit mindful when you see those clouds of fish, because what I'd completely forgotten is where there is a cloud of fish, there is usually one puffer fish. And they like to come over to you underwater, and they swim fairly quickly, and they will just explode near you and poison you. And if you're unlucky, that can probably kill you. Yeah. To be oblivious of things like pufferfish. Yep, that little yellow sucker down there, he blends in with the rest of the fish pretty well. The only difference is he casts a shadow, whereas the rest of the fish do not. So when you see a shadow like that nearby, probably best to just swim for it, because that's exactly what happens. And as you can see, the amount of damage I'm taking is not trivial. If you were in deeper water and also running out of air, it's possible you could just end up dying between suffocation and poison ticks. So, yeah, pufferfish is pretty serious business, but most of the time they are guarding something. So we're going back down here to see what he was protecting. And in this case, he was protecting a chest with some very nice stuff in it. And by nice stuff, clay, plank, and scraps. So, yeah, in the raft world, that counts as nice loot. As you can see, the reef around these larger islands is just absolutely full of useful stuff. I'm bypassing most of it because, again, I'm just focused on trying to get the mats I need to get my smelter up and running. If I happen to find anything else of interest along the way, I've been grabbing those. What I'm hoping to do is get the materials I need so I can make some swim fins and some other things that make gathering in the water a little bit more bearable and a lot more efficient. So, didn't achieve that in this episode, but stay tuned. I'm sure I will in the next. Now, this fancy looking hut here, you will see these on the bigger islands. And they don't have anyone in them. They just have I guess you could say like a kiosk kind of arrangement where you can potentially trade for better, stuff. We're going to have a look at it here in a moment, but I'm just kind of edging around, trying not to aggro the bird for as long as I can. And as it turns out, to wear out my axe. Hooray for that. And that's what getting hit on the head by a rock by a pain in the head type of bird sounds like. And honestly, I think there's almost an element of Arnold in that noise. It sort of sounded a bit, hey. But then my Arnold impersonations are very, very bad. So take from that what you will. Alright, doing my best to ignore the bird while I run to the top of the mountain. There's almost always a chest at the top of these, and it is definitely worth taking the run up here, even if you're not chopping trees down. The chest alone is usually worth the effort. In terms of that kiosk, you could see that there are some recipes that we can buy. We can buy basic building materials from there, but they also use a form of currency. And to get some currency, we need to essentially catch certain types of fish, I believe, and sell them. But I never really bothered with that side of it in Raft before. I may give it a go later, but maybe a little bit less when, my life is hanging in the balance because of an angry bird. Now, there has been some other movement on the island, and look, I'll go into what those things are in the future. But there's a bird that doesn't attack you, a ground dwelling bird, and there is a sort of goat, llama, sheep looking thing that doesn't attack you. They're essentially farm animals, but we are a long way away from actually being able to make use of them at this stage. So stay tuned in a few episodes or more. I would say more at this stage. We will be in a better position to maybe revisit this island or another similar island and, yeah, get a bit more acquainted with those critters and the handy stuff that we can obtain from them. Yeah, the chest is going to have too much in it. That's why we've left it behind. But I've made a mental note in terms of what the easiest way to get back up there is. We're going to run back to the raft now and see if we can make some progress and also clear our inventory a bit. Yeah, I did warn you that there was going to be a close encounter with a pig later. That was it. The pig will not follow you into the water. He will sort of follow you around the shore to an extent, but he won't follow you into the water. So I'll go through some tactics about how to deal with the pig a bit later when we've got the materials and we're a bit better set up for it. For the moment, we're just going to take a leaf out of Sir Robin's book and, yeah, run away. Now, in a helpful comment on a previous video, they did mention that it's good to just pick up the meat and leave the helmet behind. So basically, you pick up the 4 meat and then you stop looting just before you get to looting the shark head. The reason for that is not clearing the body completely causes it a much longer time frame before it rots and disappears, and the new shark usually doesn't respawn until the old one has disappeared completely. So you can actually buy quite a bit of additional time in the water to do some looting if you actually do it that way. Um, that said, though, I probably should have done that, but this was something I only heard about already after I had recorded this episode. So yeah, we'll start putting that into practice from the next episode. Now, we're all familiar with the term, boring enough to compare it to watching paint dry. In this game, it's, waiting for clay blocks to go from being wet to being dry. And don't worry, the splashing of the waves has no impact on that. You just need to put them on a surface and they'll just dry out naturally. It does take a little while, but not, it's not like it takes days or anything. It's only a few minutes of gameplay, relatively speaking. But I've kind of sped it up anyway, just so we don't have to sit around endlessly waiting for the bricks to finish. Alright, we are finally here. We now have in our possession a smelter, which is pretty awesome. What isn't awesome is we haven't really laid our deck out very well, and we don't have enough materials to put some more deck down. So we're going to have to once again wait for this clay block to finish. So that we can get that out of the way, and then that will give us a spot to put the smelter. So we're just busying ourselves with, some of the other mundane things that we need to do, cooking fish, restocking wood, all that other good stuff. Yay! We finally got rid of our excess clay block, and we now have a spot, albeit a very tight fit, where we can put our smelter. And bam, there it is. Oh, how magnificent is that? Well, not really that magnificent, not at the moment. We do need to, get it actually smelting something, but this is just... It is seriously the duck's guts having this thing, because we really, really need some smelted metal. The big advantage of smelted metal from a raft standpoint is you can reinforce the raft with the metal, and the shark can't chew on the bits that you've reinforced. So that's probably my main concern at the moment, is to start making our raft bigger and then reinforce the outside edge with metal, so that we don't have to spend so much time fending off shark attacks, and it gives us a more stable platform for us to, potentially build additional levels, do some farming, and just make things a little bit less of a struggle than they have been. Alright, you're going to have to get used to this sort of a sacrifice, all this effort to get our, smelter going, but of course the first bar that we get out of it, we are going to do as we've just done, and that is to sacrifice it to the research table because it unlocks some very, very nice kit, including a reusable anchor. We will be making one of those at some point. The materials investment is significant, but given you only make it the once and it's just going to be endlessly usable, it's just a must-have. Some of the other things I'm going to be looking forward to doing is, of course, making a sail and making a steering wheel so that we can control our path a bit. The relevance for that will, that will come into account a bit later. We haven't really got into the story element of Raft yet because essentially we've been very, very, very occupied with not dying. As the need to spend less time making sure that you don't, die, frees up a bit of time for exploration and getting engaged with the storyline. And I'm very much looking forward to getting to that stage in a not too distant future. I think we need to make some noticeable improvements to our raft first, not the least of which to try and make ourselves a little bit more self-sufficient. But stay tuned. The storyline is definitely something I am going to be following, and I'm going to be getting onto it literally as soon as I'm able to. Some more very useful tech there. And we also managed to unlock that shovel recipe. We don't get around to doing anything with that this episode, but that's going to be pretty high on my list for next episode to see if we can get back to that cave and dig up some of that dirt and see what we get. As well as we do need to get back up to the top of the mountain and empty out that crate and see what other goodies we can find. All right, that brings us to the end of this episode. If you've enjoyed it, don't forget to give me a thumbs up and to consider subscribing if you have not already done so. Until next time, my name is Rudimentary Rob. Thank you very much for watching and have yourself an absolutely fantastic day.